Black women who helped NASA reach the moon. In the deep hush before dawn, when the sky is still holding its breath between night and morning, there rises a memory of a young woman who refused to stay on the ground, a young woman named Bessie Coleman, whose dreams were too wide and too wild to fit inside the narrow walls society built for her. She came into a world that told her she could sweep floors but never touch the sky, that she could serve others but never serve her own destiny. Yet something in her heart whispered that the sky has room for those who dare to lift their eyes and believe in their wings. Every day she walked dusty roads, picking cotton, counting pennies, hearing stories that said people like her were never meant to fly. But she carried another story inside, the quiet insurgency of hope, the stubborn willingness to say, "No, not me. I will not accept the ground as my final home." When she grew older, she watched men climb into the cockpits of airplanes, machines that sliced the wind and devoured the distance, and she felt a fire rise in her chest. She would watch the planes through chain-link fences, her fingers curled around the metal, her heart pounding with each engine roar. And in that roar, she heard a voice that sounded like destiny, whispering her name. She tried to train in America, but flight schools slammed their doors on her again and again. "You cannot fly here," they said. "Not you, not a woman, not a black woman." But she refused to let the world decide what she was allowed to reach. She gathered every dollar she could find and crossed the ocean to France, where she learned to fly, not because the path was easy, but because the sky did not belong to the people who said no. It belonged to the ones who rose anyway. She practiced with trembling hands, then with steady courage, until one morning she touched the sky for the very first time. And in that moment, everything small behind her began to fall away. The pain, the rejection, the walls. She soared where no black woman had soared before, and the wind carried her name across oceans. Bessie Coleman, the woman who rose above the weight of history. She returned to America not just as a pilot, but as a symbol, a promise, a living answer to the question, can we rise? She flew air shows and inspired crowds who saw her loops and dives and felt something awaken in their own chests. She refused to entertain shows that segregated the audience. She demanded dignity not only for herself, but for every person who had ever been told they could not. And though her life ended too soon, the echo of her courage never fell from the sky. Instead, it drifted forward through time, landing softly in the hearts of the next generation. Years later, in another dawn and in another quiet corner of America, 3 other women would rise to answer the same ancient whisper that told them the ground could not hold them. Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson, hidden figures in a world that tried to hide their brilliance because it was not ready to see it. They were women born into segregation, working in a place where every hallway reminded them of their place, or what the world tried to call their place. Yet their minds held galaxies. Their hearts carried equations that could bend trajectories and shape the future. Every morning they walked into the gates of NASA with heads held high, even when the signs above their heads said colored. They carried their notebooks and slid into tiny office spaces where their genius quietly unfolded across pages. They were called computers, women whose calculations were written by hand in pencil, numbers falling across paper like stardust. They computed the impossible. They did math so precise it could carry a man across the cold, dark void of space and bring him home again. Katherine Johnson saw numbers like a language that spoke in possibilities. She looked at a chalkboard filled with symbols and heard a pulse like music, a rhythm that guided rockets through the heavens. She was the kind of mind that could crack open the sky and show it how to hold human dreams. She calculated the trajectory that sent John Glenn into orbit, and when machines arrived to replace humans, he trusted no one but her. "Find the girl," he said, and she did what she had always done. She shaped destiny with the quiet strength of a woman who refuses to shrink. Dorothy Vaughan stood in rooms that insisted she should be small, but she learned machines long before her superiors realized machines were the future. She learned Fortran when others dismissed it. She taught women around her so none of them would be left behind. And when NASA stepped into a new era, she and her team stepped forward with it, not as computers, but as engineers, leaders, pioneers. Mary Jackson walked into wind tunnels where the air screamed and machines roared, testing metal and dreaming of what flight could become. She wanted to be an engineer, but laws said no, so she did what brave women do. She fought those laws in court and won, opening the door not only for herself, but for every woman who would someday follow. These women worked in silence for years, their brilliance hidden behind closed doors, their names tucked away behind titles like mathematician, supervisor, trainee. But the universe does not stay quiet forever when it has been shaped by courageous hands. Their story rose into the light, and the world finally saw what had been true all along, that the race to the moon had been carried forward not only by rockets and astronauts, but by the minds of women who refused to surrender their place in history. And when we look at the sky today, when we watch aircraft carve their way through the blue, when we see rockets lift with thunder into the heavens, if we listen closely, there is a whisper riding the wind, a whisper that carries the voices of women like Bessie Coleman, Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson, women who lifted us higher not through force, but through courage, through quiet determination, through the willingness to rise even when the world tried to anchor them to the ground. Their stories do not belong to the past. They are alive in every young girl who stands near an airport fence, watching planes with wide eyes. They are present in every student who looks at numbers and feels a spark, and every dreamer who has ever been told the sky is not for them. Their stories echo in the bravery of those who dare to challenge what is possible. Bessie Coleman rose when the whole world told her to stay grounded. The hidden figures of NASA rose when their own government wrote them out of the rooms they deserved to be in. And because they rose, we rise with them. Because they believed the sky belonged to everyone, we now stand in an age where girls of every color can become pilots, engineers, mathematicians, astronauts, and dreamers of worlds far away. Their courage stitched a new truth into the fabric of America, the truth that greatness is never confined by race or gender, but only by the willingness to rise. Their legacy is a constellation glowing across time, guiding new generations, just as the stars once guided sailors across oceans. Each point of light a story of defiance, a story of triumph, a story of women who dared to believe that the sky could hold them. And so, as the wind moves across open fields and city streets, as planes lift from runways and rockets thunder into the void, as we watch and wonder and dream, we carry their voices within us, a reminder that the world only changes when someone decides to rise, that the sky only opens when someone believes it can.